Today we're going to talk to you about all the cool new stuff in InControl 2.14. There's always updates going on, right? In the firmware and in the cloud, and like I feel like it's almost not often enough that we actually talk about all these things and show people. And so yeah, today's the day to do that.
And it's kind of interesting because when we do the Peplink Summit coming this November, peplinksummit.com, but when we do the Peplink Summit, we try to like capture the list of changes. This is everything that changed in 2025, and it is massive. I mean, it almost takes an hour just to line by line read everything. Um, and so I'm really excited that we get to have this mid-year update and talk about InControl 2.14. I have a YouTube video on InControl 2.12. If you go to YouTube and search InControl 2.12, I have a 44-minute video that basically gives you an introduction to InControl. So if you're looking for, hey, what is InControl? I've got that YouTube video already online, and we also have a Peplink University video about InControl. This is an update video where we're going to highlight some of the new things that have happened. There's some amazing features. We've launched the new switches, and I want to be able to showcase how that switch management has changed and adapted and InControl. And we have some SIM card stuff that we want to talk about and Starlink stuff as usual. So we've got a lot rolled into this, and so what we're going to do is we're going to go through it. At the end, I'm going to do some real-time demos as well as answering any questions and showing you where things might be if I didn't clarify it enough in the slides. We just added about 3 minutes ago, added 2 more slides. So we're pretty excited to show you kind of a brand new, like today got working feature that we showcased in Europe, and we now have get to announce to the world. So
Yeah, cool
as
stuff.
always, Travis, oh, sorry. Thank you so much for hosting and joining me on this adventure.
Yeah, always a blast.
So let's talk about InControl. So one of a new InControl feature is Starlink data pools. And I wanted to clarify this because it confused me. And I was actually asking Travis about this. I was like, Travis, are we getting data pools? And Travis said, no, 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 no. Other people can buy data pools, and this allows you to report on those data pool usage. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And so very similar to the way that SIM card data pools work, is, you might buy like a Verizon 200 terabyte data pool for 1,000 SIMs, and you want to see how that SIM card utilization is occurring. You could actually put in all the ICC IDs and then set up your data pool. I've got 2 terabytes of data per month, blah, blah, blah. And so here's the ability for you to manage your Starlink data pools inside InControl, which is just incredible. So you basically put in your Starlink IDs, the UIDs, which you can access for any Starlink enabled, Starlink mode enabled router. And then you can put in your monthly, or there's a drop down list, which I could show you there, but you'll have monthly and daily and stuff, or yearly quota. And you can put in the amount of gigabytes or terabytes that you're going to have. You can, if you've already consumed some of that data pool for the year or a month, you can throw it in right there. You can put in the start date, and then you have your remarks and notes. And basically, it's going to let you run reports on the data pool utilization among your Starlinks, but also see which Starlinks are consuming how much data of your pool. So it gives you real-time analysis of your Starlink data pools. The next thing is Starlink management improvements inside InControl. So now we've added ignore Starlink obstruction outage in the action device menu. This is the ability to basically add this in bulk for Starlink WANs. So in 8.5.1, I believe, firmware, or 8.52, we added ignore Starlink obstruction outage. And basically what it did is you'd have these little tiny micro outages that would occur, and the Starlink would go down for a second and then come back up because the Starlink had an obstruction outage. And it's virtually impossible to have no obstructions. I mean, unless you're out in the middle of the ocean facing straight up at the sky, you're not, you're going to have these obstructions. And so for any normal person that's not in a boat, the the idea is um that you want the Starlink to be online as much as possible, especially if you're driving under a tree or you just flash underneath a bridge. You know you're going to lose a little data driving underneath the tree or under the bridge, so you don't need the Starlink to fail. You just need it to just drop that data and move on with life. That is what the ignore Starlink obstruction outage does. Instead of failing the WAN, it just keeps it connected and then ignores that obstruction outage. So it allows you to maintain your uptime more reliably. Starlink events tracking now in the WAN quality reports. So in the WAN quality reports, we're allowed to track these events now, and this is a great new feature. Geofencing, stow, unstow. So even the flat high performance Starlink, uh, Travis, sorry, not Starlink. Travis and I were talking earlier that the stow unstow actually will put your Starlink flat high performance or mini or just a fixed device into a low power mode, basically turning it off. And so you can stow your unused Starlink and actually reduce the power draw. So if you're trying to minimize power on like a solar panel environment, or you don't need to have it, you're parked in a garage, you can stow when you pull into that garage, reducing power, and it doesn't get as hot too. It's not, because what it's going to do is when there's an obstruction, it's going to actually going to, you go up there and touch these things, they're super hot. They're trying to find the sky and they can't. So by stowing it, because you know you're in an environment where there's no internet, you're able to reduce your power draw and longevity of the device, I believe. And so the stow and stow is a great capable to do that with geofencing now. Revamp device details on the edit screen with Starlink WAN settings, which we'll show you. New alert for missing Starlink GPS location data. Starlink data now included in WAN quality reports. So WAN quality reports is getting a lot more Starlink information. This is really good for tracking the reliability and capabilities of your Starlinks. We've added Starlink support. So for supported models, if Starlink support is enabled on the WAN settings page of the web admin, the device detail screen will display any Starlink status and controls. Now that's been added a few, like 2.13, I believe, is when we first added this, and we're trying to roll up because we just haven't had an update conversation. So that's been around for a little while now, but I wanted to make sure we have that roll up video content. And then new notifications for Starlink activity and high system temperature. And so we can get notifications now based on that. And so you do that by group settings and then notifications. And now you'll be able to do Starlink activity and high temperature notifications. Now we're going to go on to eSIMs and SIM cards. So eSIM data plans. Peplink has now published or started working on the kind of formalized, I should say, the Peplink eSIM or SFC 5G data plans. And so these are global or US EU data plans, and you can purchase them globally pooled. And so you have DEF GHJ. And so the 250, 500, all the way to 10 terabyte. Now, what's cool about these data plans is you can buy these at the org level, and you can then distribute these these data plans out to your SIM cards. There's a couple things to note. There is no monthly fee. It's an unlimited amount of Peplink routers that it can support. I believe, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, now we support not like more than just Peplink routers. You can activate non-Peplink devices. Is that correct?
Like iPhones. Yep, like
Yeah.
iPhones.
So
yeah.
Now this is a Peplink conversation, but just so you know, these data plans can apply to non-Peplink devices as well. And you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's just, these are not going to be the best data plan for every use case, right? If you're a broadcaster out in the field, this might not be the right plan for you. But if you're looking for backup for 100 restaurant locations or point of sale terminals, this is incredibly compelling, right? There is no per month, there is no per device charge for this. It's just a
Yep.
blanket plan that gives you insurance. If you're a managed service provider and you have hundreds, thousands of customers out there, this is your backdoor WAN of last resort. If their stuff is all down, you can push an eSIM to it and get back in quickly. So there's
And
just all kinds of ways you can use this, and
and
really,
yeah. And
it's about
as an
having
MSP,
patience
I
with
mean, we
those.
do that. We buy terabyte pool plans on, and we push them out if we need to remote setup or provide emergency connectivity. And so I could say West Networks does that in house. So it's super convenient. We were actually doing an event with T-Mobile, and they had an issue with one of their units getting online, and they literally texted me, and I was on vacation or doing another install or somewhere, not there. And they're like, hey, can you push one of your eSIMs? And we literally pushed an eSIM from our pool, just activated
Mhm.
that serial number. The router came online. It came online. They then pushed their T-Mobile eSIM and
Mhm.
then moved it over. And so it's a great way to bootstrap a router. And
Yes.
as an MSP or service provider or enterprise where might have dozens or thousands of these routers, you don't have to pay for a SIM card. There's no monthly fee. It's just data. And it's data, like raw data that you get to use at your convenience. And so it's a great toolkit to have as part of your environment, even if you just buy the small 250 gig. Um,
Yeah, and I think you use a lot of these like more refined features. Like we've got really granular controls over, this BR1 can only have 400 megs of data right now, and when that runs out, then you can decide what happens to that one, right? So you can really be really efficient with that bucket of data and not just blow through it, you know, at whim.
Correct. Yeah, you have the ability to do reporting, SIM pools. We talked about the Starlink pools, data SIM pools. And so, oh yeah, this is definitely available in Europe, Mark. And so there's actually a US EU plan that's less expensive than the global plan. So you have your global plan that's all the countries, and then you have the US EU plan for people that maybe travel between US and Europe. And so it's pretty you do not need an active internet connection to install these because they're already installed. You do need internet to install a third-party eSIM. So you can use this to bootstrap your router, bring it online, and then push your third-party eSIM.
Yep.
That's what's nice about these. They're already installed. So if you have 100 routers out there in the field and you can't get them online, you can literally buy a 250 gig plan, boom, bring them online, and then do whatever you need to do, program them. And so it's a
Yep.
great tool for that. Um,
Yep.
and so I can't speak more highly enough of this because I love it so much. Um, but that being said, it does not replace your fixed wireless. If you're running a terabyte a month of data, you can buy fixed wireless plans and push your eSIMs, right? So you could have your T-Mobile fixed wireless plan, and you go, well, what happens if T-Mobile goes out? Well, I've got my PepSIM as a backup, right? And that's got all the carriers. It's got Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. And so I can have my T-Mobile fixed wireless, and then I can fail over to AT&T and Verizon at no per SIM card. So instead of paying for 3 fixed wireless plans, I pay for T-Mobile, and then I have access to Verizon and AT&T in the event that they're down, or any mixture thereof that you want. And so that's what's great about it. Okay, I think I've talked about that enough. Why use the eSIMs? On-demand data, access to on-demand data plans, and only pay what you need anytime, anywhere. Access to multiple network under one plan. It's an affordable backup, so you can get in North America and EU plans starting at under $7 a month. It should be under $7 per gig per month, or under $7 per gig. Yeah, that's wrong. Anyways, it's that was wrong, but it's per gig. $7 per gig is the official statement there. Simple and convenient to manage every device, eliminate wastage from a single platform. And so the idea, once again, is that you can take these eSIM data plans, create a pool, and then assign that to your SIM pool and manage all of your devices and groups effectively and efficiently. So now, we talk about the Peplink eSIM. That's built into all of our routers. That is an eSIM pushed. But because we are pushing Peplink eSIMs, we also have eSIM management for third-party eSIMs. And we've improved that a lot. We've talked about this already with the start of, I think, 8.3 firmware. And so it's now we're getting into um uh the ability to really manage these at scale. We're working on a project right now where we're pushing out over 2,000 of the eSIMs out. And so the ability to manage eSIMs at scale is becoming more and more demanding. And so, and it could be third-party eSIM. So we have the built-in Peplink eSIM, that bootstrap or that backup. But then you also have the ability to push your own SIM cards. And so if you're working with an MVNO, if you're working with, I don't want to mention any names specifically just because that's not fair. But if you're working with any major carrier or any MVNO, you can push those eSIMs out. And there's some great capabilities to do that. And so Peplink has added that function and enhanced it within InControl, starting with 2.13 going up into 2.14. And so we have eSIM data plan information now shown on the device details. Pooled plan information added to the organization overview. We added eSIM discovery support in eSIM activation. And we just did this morning. We had a T-Mobile, we had 2 EIDs. We submitted them to T-Mobile. It activated. We literally just said, install eSIM auto discover. Boom. No QR code, no activation code. It just went on T-Mobile and activated the eSIMs. It's a great capability that's enhancing and allowing for mass rollouts, because it used to be a pain in the butt to push out 100 eSIMs. You had to log into each and every single SIM card or router, go to eSIM activation, push SIM 1, push SIM 2. Now you just grab your EIDs, submit them to your carrier, Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, or your MVNO, and then you can auto detect those activations. Status is now displayed in the downloading an eSIM profile. Before you kind of just had to guess what it was doing. Now you can see the status, which is really nice. Once I already kind of mentioned this, but bulk eSIM activation is now supported on multiple devices via the actions menu. And I'm going to show you this, by the way. eSIM EID now displays both device details and device management screens. Added switching support from Peplink eSIM, BYO eSIM, Remote SIM, and Fusion SIM. That's a lot of capabilities. And we have now the ability to switch between those. So in InControl, we had the AB switcher. Now you have the AB PEP eSIM, which is, by the way, the E. If you see the E, that's Peplink eSIM. BYOA, BYOB, those are your bring your own eSIMs that you push yourself, just for your own reference. So BYO eSIM now selectable at the device level bandwidth usage reports. You can actually monitor bandwidth usage on the actual BYO eSIMs. And added support of applying an eSIM activation code. So if your eSIM does require an activation code, we now have that built into InControl. That is a lot of stuff that I just went over, and it seems so simple, like, duh. This is a year and a half in the making. This is, almost every month, Peplink doing little tiny updates as carriers have demands and requirements so that we can support their eSIMs. Peplink is constantly evolving and adding these features to make it easier and more powerful. And it's been incredible to watch over the last year as Peplink has added all these features, and we've been testing them. I mean, I remember I called my buddy over, my PG over at Venn, and said, "Hey man, you got an activation code? I can test this eSIM feature." And he's like, "Oh yeah, here, use this." I mean, I didn't even know really what to do with it. I've been, doing eSIMs, and this was, maybe 2 years ago at an event, and I was just like, "Hey, can I push an eSIM? I see this new feature." And now it's every day. We've got customers saying, "Hey, we're not buying a Peplink router unless it supports eSIM. Like, if we
Yep.
can't manage our routers with eSIM, we're not buying the router." And so this is incredibly important for our enterprise people that are managing thousands of devices. They don't want to go physically install eSIMs or physically install SIM cards.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know you've said it already, but I just want to make sure it's clear. We have eSIM capabilities and we have our own eSIM data plans, but we are an open platform. And so this works with any third-party SIMs, any carrier native SIMs, as long as there's a two-way street there that we can, add that profile in there. We want that to work. And so that's an ongoing capability, right? We've never restricted which SIM cards can go in the slots, and we're not changing that on the eSIM side either. But we want to make data plans convenient and integrated and really easy to deploy. And so, again, we do both.
And that bootstrap capability with that the eSIM brings in, it truly does allow that flexibility to push anything you want, and that's where that power comes in. There's so many different vendors out there and carriers out there. Someone just asked about that. Like, this bootstrap capability allows you to push any third party MVNO or carrier 71. And we've
Yeah.
tested with almost all of them. I mean, at this point, this has been so tested, it's not even, it's just crazy. Here's a little bit of a view of the action menu. It's kind of goes into the question mark. I teach a lot of people, hey, check those question marks, because that's how you enable features. I didn't even know. I was trying to figure out another thing, which I'll show you in a little bit. The people at Peplink, when we need to add a feature quick, we need to use an existing menu. We need to use an existing toolkit that's already there. And so what Peplink has done is they've got this action menu, and this allows us to add a feature fast, and make it readily available. And so what Peplink has done is, if you have your list of routers or switches or devices, you scroll all the way to the bottom, you click edit, and it's going to allow you to select routers, switches, or devices. And then you have an action menu. And that action menu will apply options to those devices. And so you can see here, I've got my action menu. I can move the devices between groups. I can remove devices, change my map marker, modify my firmware. I get people all the time. They ask me, hey, I just want to push firmware to these 5 devices. Why can't we just do this by tag? Actually, you can do it right from here. The action menu, you just select those 5 devices, add firmware, boom, push it out, done. So the action menu has a bunch of features. If you've not seen this yet, I highly suggest you look at it. I'll show it to you in real time as well in a few minutes. But one of these options is Peplink eSIM data. And so here you can actually top up your data plan. I did try this, by the way. It's not instantaneous. It has to process through the ordering system. You got to submit your payment, and it takes a little bit of time. But I was able to top up my data plan, and I will show this to you as well. And then I was also able to top up your global eSIM data plan. And so from your organization, you can go ahead and purchase that data. Then once you've got the data plan set up, you can select your routers, multiple routers, and just hit add device to eSIM data pool plan. This is phenomenal, because now you can not only purchase the data, you can also add devices to that data instantaneously, or virtually instantaneously. I mean, it actually takes a little bit for the data plan itself to activate, but once it is active, it's very quick to add your devices. And then additionally, they've added eSIM installation, bulk eSIM installation. So once again, if you've pushed those EIDs to a carrier that supports our auto detect feature, you can basically, and we did this morning with T-Mobile to test it, but you can actually, we push the 2 EIDs, select it, some eSIM installation, and then it auto detected and downloaded the eSIM profile. And so that's been added to this actions menu as well. We've got a really cool tool that I wanted to show you, the cellular site survey tool. This is not public yet. This is it's in a special firmware, and right now it's a private feature. But we showed this off at the European Summit, and I'm really excited that Travis, as part of our InControl 2.14, we were able to show off the site survey tool. Often we get asked what carriers are available, what bands are available, what networks are available at a site. And oh, well, I can send someone out and do a site survey, or now I can mail you a BR1 Mini Pro 5G and do my own site survey. And so if you're running the test firmware, you can go to network settings and site survey schedules. And so now what's funny is this morning, Travis sends me this test firmware. My InControl, my Peplink University InControl did not have that feature. It was not there. Travis sends me the test firmware. It only works, Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, on 5G in devices. It must be 5G in for this current firmware and tool. So if you
Yep,
have a 5G,
right now it's kind of a insider preview, and
yeah,
yeah, for now that's what it supports. It's limited to that modem SKU. We'll see, this will come out in the next beta firmware then, and we will figure out what modems are supported at that time. But I shouldn't say the next beta, but it will come out in a beta firmware hopefully very soon. But yeah, right now it's fairly limited, but it's working really well too. And so it's super cool to show you guys. And, as always, we want to get feedback fast and, evolve this so that it just does all the things that make your jobs easier and help you scale.
And so once you install the beta firmware, the option will automatically show up in InControl as a supported device. Once you do that, you can go down to network settings, site survey schedule, create a schedule. Here you enable, give it a name, all the supported devices. You can tell it to do on specific cellular names. So for example, you could actually say you have BR2. You could have cell 2 named site survey or survey, and then actually say only run on cellular routers that support the firmware and have the name survey. So if you don't want it to run, just don't name the WAN survey. And so that's really cool about Peplink. They do that with the syntax sensitive WANs for a lot of things, outbound firewalls, outbound policies, firewall policies, a lot of stuff is syntax based on the WAN name. This is also the same. So you could say, hey, if the WAN is named survey, run the tool. If it's not named survey, don't run the tool. That's a great capability to make sure you don't accidentally shut off a customer in production. And then you can tell how often do you want to run the survey. Once you create that, you go, well, I want to run it right now. Once you do this, just like InTouch, there's a little play button right here to the right. You could hit that play button and execute the test. Once the test runs, you can log into any device that supports it. So a 5GN router with the beta firmware, and you're under reports, you're going to get a new feature called site survey. And it's going to show up right there under reports to site survey. You see it's white. White means I'm at the device level. So this white is at the device level, site survey. And then there's my nearby cell towers. And look at this, it gives me the cell IDs, the TAC, the network type, the band, the MCC, the MNC. So there's your, PLMN, your carrier that's available, channel, PCI. So let's say I'm running, this is a really fun one. Let's say I'm running an HD4 and I've got 2 T-Mobile and 2 Verizon. Well, right here, I could do a PCI lock, right? I know that I've got very good and excellent on channel 2. You can see that right there. And then down here, I've got a good and very good, but I got a good and excellent on channel 4. And so I would not want to be on these 3 that are poor right here, right? We'd want to stay away from those. And so we can use the channel and PCI lock to avoid those poor signals and stay with the excellent good. And look at this, 13 Verizon, excellent, excellent. So that would be better, right? So I could do 13 and, and 2 on Verizon. And then on T-Mobile, I could do this, very good one. And so the idea is it gives you visibility into exactly which carriers are available, what signal strengths for each channel are, and gives you all the information you need to lock those channels and make your internet perfect. And it's an incredibly powerful tool. I'm incredibly happy that Peplink, I've used that word a lot today. I'm so sorry. I'm just stoked that Peplink is adding these features. It makes our job so much easier. Travis, did I miss anything on that one, or?
No, I've just been throwing some answers up in the chat here,
I
but
see you're like the answer guru.
Um, no, I think that the site survey is just so important again because like you live the life of this, but you're a lean organization that serves way more people than I think traditional IT operations are used to, and these types of tools help you do that, right? These help you be on the ground in more ways than you can be when, be almost on the ground when you can't be there in person.
Bill asked a great question about this. We'll sell you on one. You actually don't need a SIM card to run the tool. This is I've got I think a T-Mobile and or a Verizon in this particular one. And you can see it showing me Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, AT&T, FirstNet. So it's just scanning what's out there. So you don't need a SIM card of the carriers to make this work. My BR2 that I use to run this tool does not have FirstNet, Sprint, or AT&T in it. And it still was able to pick up all of these channels. And by the way, that's sitting right here on the table on my conference desk. So inside connected to, so this is inside my building running this site tool.
Yeah, I think it's really cool too to see the band the bandwidth. You see that in the parentheses. So some of them, some of those are really small. You've got 10 megahertz channels, but then you've got some 20, you've got some even 40, and then 100 megahertz. So there's a lot of data to consume here when you're making decisions about what you're going to connect to, but now you've got all of that right in front of you instead of, plugging in a SIM and connecting and trying. And this used to be a lot of manual work to get to this point, and this will help you optimize much faster.
So a lot of questions about site survey tool. I'm going to try to answer them all in bulk.
Cool.
The uh, the tool will disrupt internet. Any test, by the way, I get these complaints all the time, and some anonymous person asked a question. I'm not won't necessarily care about that one, but the 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 in order to run a test, whether it's a performance test or a cell analysis test, you're going to have to shut down the SIM. If I'm running a performance test, if I want to know the maximum capacity, I get this complaint all the time. I want to know how the total capacity at any given moment. And I get this all the time. Okay, well, the only way to do that is to use the maximum capacity, which means you have no free internet to run. So if I'm running a speed test 24/7, 365 over and over again, I have no internet to run my Teams meeting. It's impossible to run them both because only on an access level network where it's variable throughput and we're trying to figure out the capacity, you have to push data through it to see what that is. So you're not going to be able to run a performance test without using the internet, which one's going to cost you a bunch of money because you got to use the gigabytes. And then two, you're not going to have any available. So it's better to run these on a schedule. And Peplink has these tools built in. It's not associated with this, but we also have the connectivity test. If you look up right here, I'll go up one page. Right here, there's a connection test. So we have the ability to test performance and site surveys on an automated schedule. It is disruptive because it is going to suck up all available bandwidth and or shut down that radio to run the site survey. That being said, you can run this every morning at 7 a.m. What channels are available? What's my network look like? And then you can go back and look at these reports historically and run some information. So you can run testing. You can run connection speed tests. I do this a lot for our managed customers that are running like broadband. I can say, hey, every morning at 7 a.m. run a test. If it's less than 100 by 10, which is the broadband, create an alert, failed alert. And then we get notified, hey, site 1735 failed its WAN connection test. And we can go in and check it, make sure that everything's okay with that site. And so that's the benefit of these connection tests is I can check thousands of sites and one person just has to check it. And the site survey tool is a tool that allows you to send out and remotely deploy. I get paid to travel around and do site surveys. Well, now I can save my customers money and make my job easier and serve more clients by mailing a BR1 Mini 5G and saying, here, turn this on and run the test, right? And so when you, and I can bootstrap that with a Pep SIM and have all three carriers. So I don't need to worry about if T-Mobile's are there, Verizon's there, AT&T's there. I just mail them a BR1 Mini with an Peplink eSIM. They boot it up. I run the test. I get a visibility of everything there. I can then use the PEP eSIM to connect to each carrier and run a performance test. So I can actually run a performance test with a connection test, run a site survey, and check all three carriers with a BR1 Mini Pro 5G. Now, I prefer, honestly, to do that with a BR2 because I like to have it always on while I'm switching things around. But you could do it with a BR1 Mini. I would personally do it with a BR2.
Yeah, and that's, for people that have multi-radio devices, the way this is configured, you could configure one of those cellular radios as, name it scan, for example. And then in that setting, you could choose, with the following name scan. And so then you could always have a dedicated radio to doing this background scanning that won't disrupt the other radio. And so, if you're like in a live events planner, this is a great example, right? You have an HD4, you're going to have T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, and then your fourth radio on the MBX is for scanning constantly because, the crowd will change, the data usage will change during those events. And so then you can be much more responsive and live on that type of a tool. But, a BR1 Mini, like Peter said, you've got schedules and times and other ways to use that, or proactively as a
Yeah.
planning tool.
And with VR1 Mini, like say you have a T-Mobile SIM in it, you run the tool, it will take the internet down for a few, the router will go offline for 60 seconds. It'll run its scan, reconnect to T-Mobile, and then upload the results of that scan. So even if you only have one SIM card, it'll still work. It just won't stay connected the entire time. So now we're going to move over to switch management because I do want to show off some of these features. And someone asked a question about PCI locking. I'd like to show them as well. So switch management with the new switches, they don't have a local UI, and Peplink has put a lot of work into making sure that the InControl version, as well as the routers with 8.5.2 firmware, have the built-in switch management capabilities to be able to do that. And I have a whole video on that as well. But there have been some improvements on InControl, and I want to show you where those are because I personally struggled finding them. And so I was email, hey guys, thanks for the new switch, but where do I enable a spanning tree? And so I wanted to show everybody where those features are, so that you'll go, hey, we got these new switches, but they don't have the features, because they do have the features. I just want to show you where they are. So first, our new switches have an enterprise chipset. And so we're trying to standardize with like your Arubas and your HP, and your Cisco's. And so they default access untapped. That's gonna, or access VLAN 1. And so so that's going to be a unique thing, is a lot of people say, oh, the VLAN trunking is not there, it doesn't have trunk all. And so from the switch port management, you can set your VLAN, your trunk. If you do a trunk port, you can set your PVID now. It sort of got added with the original, with the old switches around 1.31, I believe, firmware. We started adding PVID, but it's become forced or required with the new switches. And so that's under the switch port configuration, and you can bulk edit those using the select all or the edit select all. So you can do this multiple. You can do this more than one port at a time. Sorry. And then you have a rapid spanning tree protocol checkbox right there. That actually should have had a little orange box there. So there's your spanning tree, your PVID, and then loop protection. These three items are done at the port level of the device. DHCP snooping is done under the action menu. So device management actions menu that I showed you up above here, right here, this actions menu, that's where you're going to get DHCP snooping and spanning tree bridge priority. And so you can set your spanning tree bridge priority and your DHCP snooping at the actions menu level. So you can check that box and then turn DHCP snooping on and off. Once you turn on DHCP snooping, then you can make it, each port can be trusted. So once you turn it on at the port level, you can set whether it's trusted or untrusted, but you got to turn it on first. IGMP snooping and port mirroring is under the network settings menu. So under group settings, network settings, IGMP snooping and port mirroring. There are some specifics. IGMP snooping is not supported on 2.0.2 firmware. We just tested this at a pretty big deployment last weekend with somebody with a special build switch firmware, and I was told that 2.0.3 will support IGMP snooping. So IGMP snooping, if you need it on the new switches, there is a special build, a beta of IGMP snooping, but otherwise, you just wait for 2.03, and then port mirroring. So I just wanted to show you where those are, because I had to find those, and it was kind of frustrating. So once again, PVID, RSTP, and loop protection and DHCP snooping will show up on the switch manager on the port configuration after you turn on DHCP snooping via the device actions menu. Spanning tree priority is in the actions menu. IGMP snooping and port mirroring is in the network settings. I kind of already talked to Travis this morning about this, but we're going to kind of push Peplink to put all those in one section. So, so, but I wanted everybody to see where they are. That was the most important thing to me, because I really like the new switches. And we're just trying to make sure that we get the best performance and features, and make sure that all the features that were in the old switches as well as new enterprise feature sets get pushed out. And so providing good feedback to Peplink and then making sure that we know where these features are proper. Loop protection does not work on per VLAN at this point. So loop protection is a layer 2. Travis, I don't know if you want, I don't believe, well, we have an 8-port. I've got the 8-port, oh, well, I guess industrial. I've got the 8-port, we got the 8-port 10 gigabit switch. I don't believe there's any plans for a 16-port right now. I believe it's the 24, but Travis, I don't know if you know more than I do on that one.
Yeah, he's not the only one asking for something like that. I don't have a specific time frame there, but yeah, he's not the only one, so we
Yeah.
need to get more
Well,
get more
and
info on
the
that.
more, by the way, the more adoption, right? Everything's about supply and demand value, right? The more people that I mean that need these products, the better it is for adoption and growth and getting the products we need. And this was more of a joke, but I mean this actually happened publicly at the second annual Peplink Summit, where we had an issue where Peplink thought, oh, I was just going to use Ubiquiti or Cisco or somebody else. So they didn't understand the ecosystem and the raving loyalty that we had of Peplink fans that wanted this ecosystem that the Peplink had. And it was a funny real-time argument that occurred at the summit. And we had customers stand and say, whoa, hey, we love your switches. We love the ecosystem. And Peplink had to go back and start making the switches and building out that platform. And so, the more things that we, the more demand that we create, the better it's going to be for everyone. Currently there is no profiles for NDI, Dante, AS, all the stuff you just said. I believe there is some future features coming out for video, but currently those features don't exist for profiles. The next is under management updates is KVM management. So in InControl, we have the ability now to auto start and auto enable KVM. This was sort of a little pet peeve of mine. If you set up like a read-only Active Directory controller and then you rebooted the Peplink, by default, the KVM would be off. And that personally kind of sucked. And then you had to use a Linux machine with virtual machine manager, log into it. So we had like a Docker container that would auto start and we could go in and start the VM. With KVM now under device system management, you can actually turn on KVM, enable KVM on devices, and auto start your virtual machines on boot up. So this is great if you're running. This is great if you're running like VMs that are required to be booted up when the Peplink boots up, and having that started right away. So anyways, cool feature built right into KVM settings. Next one is Docker management. This one's kind of fun. We kind of talked about this in 8.53 update, but also as part of InControl 2.14, it's important to see that we're involved. The Docker capabilities of the firmware get brought into the environment. And so when we were doing SailGP, we built this Docker KVM or Docker image that would be a camera switcher. So it was using RS-232 on the BR2, and then it had a 4-port KVM, and they were able to switch between each camera like in real time. And we needed to push this to all the boats as they came online. That was where the big thing is. They would boot up and then they would shut off, and then sometimes they were there. And so unless we were sitting there staring at the boat and turning it on, and we couldn't push it when the boat was out in the field. We needed it while it was at dock still. And so we literally were able to create the script, say push it to all the routers that were on the boats, and when they power up the boats, it would download that script, run, and we then had a functioning Docker image. And because we were using VNAT and static IPs, the script booted up the VM, the Docker, assigned it a static IP address, and then we used VNAT, so we knew exactly which boat every one of these was connected to, and we had a master switcher that we could actually switch between. For on all 9 boats, you could switch between all 4 cameras. And so it was a great capability. utilization of the Docker management, be able to push that out in real time. Really fun.
That's a cool
Um,
use of the VNet too. I mean, that's
yeah, it is. And well, in hardware integration, right? It's a Docker image that's integrating with the RS-232 port and creating a web UI for an RS-232 controlled device, which
yeah.
I thought was really cool.
Yep,
Um,
that's super cool. And yeah,
so
every ship's the same, I imagine, in the network for, from the LAN perspective. So that, yeah, that's
yeah,
really cool.
yep, yeah, everyone's the same. So every boat's exactly the same, and we use VNAT on SpeedFusion. So boat 201, 202, 203, 204, 205. And
Mhm.
so it was 192.168.50, and then it would map to 10.100, 201, 202, 203, 204. And so you knew, hey, I'm going to log into US on 201 and log into Spain on 205 or whatever it was. Um, a couple extra things that have brought that we just wanted to highlight, and then I'll get into little demos here. But we added organization-wide grouped networks. This is really cool. Now, let's say you have a list of servers or allowed URLs. You can create a grouped network of your servers at the organization level. Then firewall policies and outbound policies at the group level can use that list of servers or domain names. So you can have a trusted domain names list or a internal servers list at the organization level that gets pushed automatically to every single group in your org. Super powerful for big enterprises that might have trusted servers and or systems they need to allow access to. Grouped MAC address replaces access control list. So instead of access control list, it's now been renamed grouped MAC addresses. So you have grouped networks and grouped MAC addresses. And that can be used for ingress ACL, port-based 802.1x authentication, etc. Fusion Hub licenses, the auto renew button states will be persistent and not be auto disabled. So basically, if you have a Fusion Hub that is in a public cloud that might move between hypervisors that can change the CPU, you can auto renew. And so when it reboots or gets deactivated because of hardware change, it'll auto renew itself and stay active. We added client monitoring to the client pages. A monitor button has been added to the client page. This allows you to monitor LAN clients as part of your notifications. So you can click monitor next to a client. Then on your notifications under group settings, you can then get email alerts. Hey, this client went offline. So you can monitor servers, you can monitor network devices, anything you want to monitor on your network, and then you get notified if that device goes offline, which is really cool. We added domain support to grouped networks. So grouped networks now supports IP addresses and URL or UNCs, right? Fully qualified domain names. So peplink.com. Wi-Fi QR codes are now shown in the SSID settings. So when you create a SSID, you can now see the QR code for the SSID, which is really cool because you just right click on that, save it as a picture, and then print it, and then you have your guest Wi-Fi or QR code. It's a great way of sharing Wi-Fi settings. And they've also added by upload under outbound policy least used. Least used used to be by download only. And actually, almost 2 years ago, we added the option of by upload to actually help support load balancing of Starlink. And so that has been added to InControl as an outbound policy option. So that's been there. So I want to show, someone asked about PCI locking, and I would like to show that real fast. Give me 1 second. So if I go into my Peplink University, so this is actually my site survey. And so you can see I've got my 2 site surveys that ran. And this is, by the way, sitting at the exact same time, 4 minutes apart. So, and you can see it changes. That little tiny bit demonstrates how variable cellular is. I went from having just 3 little pores to having 6 pores in a matter of 4 minutes. And so the cellular site survey demonstrates the variability of cellular access over time. But let's go into the other thing real fast. So here's my 5GN router, my BR2 Pro 5GN, and go to my device details, settings, remote web admin. And so I can click on this cellular one, Verizon. And under carrier selection, I can customize my PLMN, which you saw on that list. That PLMN is those 6 numbers. Under 5G, LTE and 3G, here I can do my restrict LTE network or my restrict SA network. So I can restrict my 5G SA to a PCI or my LTE to a PCI and channel. So if it's my 5G SA, I can go to 5G SA, choose an SA band like N25, and then put in my channel and PCI. What's interesting here is PCI is optional. So I can lock the channel, but allow the PCI to be unlocked. Or I can lock both the channel and the PCI. So if I'm trying to be a fixed location, I can do channel and PCI. If I'm moving around an area, I can lock the channel, but not the PCI, and that way it can move around. Kind of cool option there. And then under band selection, you can customize it and select your bands that are available. You can also do your 5G SA right there and lock it to 5G SA, and then choose your frequency and your channel and PCI option. Or once again, you can enable this for I probably have to LTE. There you go. There's my LTE. So my LTE channel and PCI and my 5G SA channel and PCI and band. So under cellular settings, you can do that. On the if I go to my 5G lab, I go to network settings, site survey schedules. I can add a schedule. I can do all devices. I can do it by tag, cellular WAN to use, first cellular WAN, or with the following name, survey. And so I name my cellular WAN survey, and then when do you want me to do it? Every hour, every day, every Monday. So I can say every hour at 5 minutes past the hour, hit save, and then I can simply say run right there if I want it to run right now. So I don't want to wait till 5 minutes after the hour. I can just hit the play button right there and it'll run. So this site survey that's on auto, I can actually just hit play and it'll trigger my router to run. And then I can go into my router that is a 5G N capable that has the special firmware. So here's my 5G N. And I can go to reports, site survey, and pull up those reports when they're ready. And so that's just a great way to be able to do that.
Yeah, and again, we've had a few questions on it, but this site survey feature, the InControl portion is built, the firmware portion is not yet ready. So this is not a tool you will see in your account yet. It will come out in the future beta firmware release, hopefully 8.5.3. But yes, we're just showing you this now. It's a preview, but it's not too far away.
Okay. Well, if we have not been able to answer your question, or you don't feel like we were able to answer your question, feel free to email us, Travis@peplink.com, Peter@westnetworks.com. We can help you answer any additional questions that maybe we didn't have time to answer directly on the webinar. And as always, Travis, thank you so much for being the host and allowing me to continue to do this.
Absolutely, Peter. Thank you as always. And everybody who joined, thanks the most. Take care, and we'll talk to you next month.
Talk to you next month. And if you have any feedback on what you would like us to do, please send an email, Peter at westnetworks.com or Travis@peplink.com, and make a suggestion, and we will be more than happy to put that into consideration. And if we do use your suggestion, you will get a free t-shirt. So just send us your suggestions and we'll make that. And if we choose your suggestion, then we'll send you a free t-shirt. So have a good one, and thank you so much.